Today we bring you a lecture and slideshow by art and culture critic, curator, journalist and translator Jony ML, a visiting professor at the National Institute of Design and Center for Environmental Planning and Technology at Ahmedabad. He is also the managing editor of Art and Deal magazine and the founding editor of 2 online magazines on contemporary Indian art. Besides having published numerous articles for catalogues, journals and newspapers, he has initiated and successfully executed 35 national and international shows that include Finding a Lost Culture and Tradition, Vibrant Gujarat, Video Wednesdays at Gallery Space, Expressions at Tihar, If I Were a Saint, Freedom to March, Lensing It, and A for Apple. A click on johnyml.blogspot.com will take you to his blog, which he writes with passion and conviction of the values that we may all hold dear, but perhaps are letting slip through our fingers. Roots, relational continuities, and connections are, in his opinion, by all means necessary. That is also the name of his blog. And he believes that art should be reinvested with the mysterious and the mystical in order to rescue it from being treated as a product of mass production for unthinking consumption. Images, says Jony, enter the consciousness of the audience through their pictorial effect, and his work is all about capturing and sustaining the attention of his audience through arresting spots of time. He pioneered video art at a time when the form was little known in the country. This new medium, he believes, gives a lot of space to the artist to experiment while providing a range of technological possibilities. Where did all this prodigious talent spring from? Jony himself avers that it was nurtured by the rich cultural and literary life of Kerala in the mid-70s, which was a period of creative revolution. That was the time he was born in the backwater village of Vakam near Attingal in Kerala. He moved to Trivandrum for his studies, evincing great enthusiasm for arts and literature. Though a student of English literature, Jony wanted to focus on art as his career, and so he also studied art history at MS University, Baroda. A scholarship to UK gave him the opportunity to do a 3rd postgraduate course, this time in creative curating. Thus, he was well equipped to launch out on his own as a writer, art critic, and curator. And over the years, he's become a name to reckon with.
First of all, welcome to my lecture, titled The Landscape After Battle. It's a small subtitle here, Nature in Transit. And I should thank Mr. Diwan Manna, Professor B.N. Goswami, and Mrs. Ninette for inviting me for this lecture. And of course, I'm very happy to be here with Subodh Kerkar, my friend and a wonderful artist. And I should address you, friends, colleagues, and Facebook friends, because Facebook is the new landscape. You know, wherever I go to give lectures, and many people come to me and say hello, and some people say, hello sir, and they show a lot of familiarity, and sometimes I really need to rake through my mind where I have seen them. Because in Facebook, we see them as small stamp-size photograph, and we create a kind of subjectivity and identity for them through this photograph. When they appear in person, it's a kind of great revelation. So wherever I go, I identify, I call out them and say, my dear Facebook friends, it's good to see you here. In fact, this is my first visit to Chandigarh. And it gave me a very rude cultural shock, I should say. And after my 20s and early 30s, it is first time that I am going through a kind of existential angst after coming here. In my early 40s, I'm for the first time, once again I felt this existential angst, especially yesterday night. I couldn't sleep well, even if I slept well, but metaphorically speaking, I couldn't sleep well, mainly because Bireswar Sen's exhibition here in the Alliance. And there, and also in many venues, including here and in Tagore Theatre, Professor B.N. Goswami, for the last few days, has been giving very insightful introductions about each program, each presentation, and each aspect of these presentations. So, in front of such a great personality, and also the people who are familiar with that personality's oratorial skills and knowledge, what kind of presentation that I'm going to do, that was actually worrying me throughout. But of course, once you are on the podium, you turn into a performer, the way Subodh Kerkar has. And Subodh gave me a lot of, this is the problem of being good friends, He gave me a really, really bad time yesterday because he wanted to be very casual, and so he was wearing t-shirt. So I thought like I should remove my shirt and show my body, like in my banyan, like I should stand, kind of rebel and show this thing. But that's not the right way, for especially a person with then other major cultural shock, or even I should not say cultural shock, shock of life that Mr. Diwan Manna gave me, because when he asked me, I sent him a photograph. He asked me for a photograph. Then generally I thought, okay, a photograph. I sent another photograph, and he said that we need some high resolution photograph. I sent something just like that, I looked at my computer picture folder, I saw this thing, and I said, and I never thought, I got 2-3 calls, like Subodh Kerkar, when he came here, he called me immediately and said that, Jony, you are everywhere, so, and once I came here, look at this scale, then to live up to this scale, you need to really work out a lot, not only physically, but mentally, and then that was scaring me like anything. So, anyway, I have overcome all those, fears. I have, maybe kind of rehearsed myself well. So now I am going to come to my presentation. This is titled Landscape After Battle, Nature in Transit. So there is a special reason, there's a particular reason why I called Landscape After Battle. Because my first proposition is that landscape is in crisis, because we are going through a major crisis as far as landscape or nature is concerned. And it is, the crisis occurs mainly because landscape or the authority over landscape or nature is an ideological position or ideological positioning. It is all about power. It is all about grabbing power, possessing power, and exercising power. So while doing that, you naturally exclude also certain people, certain entities from the whole discourse of culture or whatever, The second proposal is that landscape or nature is gender-based. We say that she is a good-natured girl. At the same time, we say that he is a well-cultured man. So there is always a binary that nature is something like a raw, that has some feminine quality, that has like embedded femininity in it, and culture is refined, that belongs, the culture belongs to he. So a woman is a raw being and a man is a cultured being, a refined being. So this binary opposites, that we always play out, and how it is getting reflected in our production of visual culture and the production of works of art throughout 20th century and even in the new century in which we are living today. The third proposal which I want to forward in front of you is, or put in front of you is, landscape or nature is something very political. It is a field of contestation. This is something like we need, this is a field, this is a zone where we fight out a lot of ideologies, lot of political theories and political activism or activities, and why for our sound or our voice to be heard, our presence to be registered. So I enter in my presentation. So when we say generally landscape or nature, we have a totally different idea about it. But this is how a person coming from Delhi, this is how, when I say landscape, you may call it cityscape, you may call it like, especially when during the 70s when artists were doing what you call the abstract painting, like J. Swaminathan and all, they used to call it metascape, you know, something, a scape that is something beyond the material realities. Here, when we can call it a cityscape or an urban scape. But here, what you see, when you say, I'm presenting the landscape of Delhi, today we see Delhi like this. So there is something very serious, change is happening in the general topography of the urban spaces. So this is how, and also like even the road names, the identification marks, everything is getting changed. Now many of the localities are known by the number of the pillar. Like, you know, you come and take a turn from 148th pillar, you know, like that. So landscape, the idea of landscape is changing into something else in our life. This is another, these photographs are by an artist named, a photography artist named Anurag Sharma. This is how we imagine a city today. When we see a cityscape or city's landscape, we address it like that. So you can see that there is a totally different culture coming out, different aspect of life coming out, and its visual representation coming out from this. This is a work by Jijis Karya. So here he is trying to create, or he is trying to present a map of a city where the city is a kind of maze. You know about this Foucauldian idea of a kind of this structure, the panopticon structure, whereas there would be a raised platform, and the authority could watch over you. Whatever you do, he or she could sit and watch, you know. So this has become, the city has become a maze, and there is a kind of disorganized growth happening elsewhere, especially the people who are in Chandigarh, like living in a very controlled and very much clean, neat space and very ordered space, very controlled space. They feel that this is something different feel of landscape. This work again by Jijis Karya, this is titled Keep the City Clean. So what he does is, this is the the map of Delhi, and once Sheila Dikshit, the present chief minister, she said that we should keep the city clean. So what the artist's interpretation is that you could keep the city clean by removing the people and the architecture from that particular city, from the boundaries of the city, so that the city will be kept clean. So this is what you see, that as a vacant space is the original Delhi, and the city is now clean. So this is a sort of political intervention that you see, or a kind of a questioning of the political ideology of governance. Again, another work of Jijis Karya. So you can easily connect again Jijis Karya. So what I'm trying to say is, when we talk about landscape, today we think about a totally different landscape, which is the embodiment of structured power, a power that imposes by itself in our everyday life. Another work. This is again another work by Jijis Karya. This is a painting, acrylic on canvas. So you can see that like the city itself becoming a JCB machine, which is like constantly removing earth, which is clearing out things and creating a new structure, a new topography for the city. This is called Delhi Mall, again by the same artist, because why I am showing this artist extensively, just to give an idea that how the idea of urban spaces or the landscape is changing today, and which is becoming a kind of unified structure, a kind of powered structure in our imagination or in our visualization. This is, you can identify there up there, Jantar Mantar is there, Parliament House is there, then Humayun Tomb, like Qutub Minar, all this, everything is coming into one single unit. Mall is a place where you can buy things, you can satisfy your desire by buying different brands. The brands create desire in you, and you buy stuff from the very same malls. And here, this is Delhi Mall. The idea of Delhi, or the idea of this particular urban space or the city, is actually formed into a kind of ascending structure, as a kind of pyramidical structure, where every aspect of Delhi, what makes Delhi as a desirable city, is brought there. Again, another a kind of environmental intervention by Gigi Scaria. This is a huge fountain created, in the sense like it is not a permanent structure. It could be a permanent structure, but it is not meant for a permanent structure. This is, placed on the banks of Yamuna River. This is around the four-story building, as tall as a four-storied building, and there is a jet pump going up. So this is a kind of new Ganga or new Yamuna. It's like a new fountains, reminding you of Lord Shiva. So now, after showing these images, why I am coming to this particular artist is Kevin Mistiskin. When you formulate a new landscape, or when you think about a new structure or a new topography, you exclude certain people, or you exclude certain activities. You don't want to see these things. So creating a city means, creating a new landscape means a political act. It is the politics of exclusion. You try to push certain people away. So that means like, you remember when Bill Clinton visited Delhi, all the shops were closed, on either side of the streets. The shops were closed. People, the beggars were, chased away, picked up from the red light areas, in the sense the traffic signal areas, and they were sent away. The same way, when the Commonwealth Games happened in Delhi, the slums were covered by the huge hoardings, like this, huge hoardings and covered. So the dirt is covered and kept aside, and that dirt is not addressed. So the political structures, the political authorities, when they create a new landscape for the new environment or new life or new global situation, they exclude certain people from the whole discourse. Again, the workers. Actually, they don't come into our general life. They come only when they are focused, like by an artist like Kevin or somebody like that. Recently, on writer Aman Sethi, he wrote The Last Man. There's a kind of novel, semi-novel and semi-sociological work. So in that, he talks about the life of a coolie, a load worker in old Delhi, like that. So a new topography, new landscape, new urban scape pushes people out of its visibility. There are several activities happening like this, flower sellers, but we don't much care about what happens to their life. We could say that these are liminal spaces, or these are liminal activities, which is not directly addressed either by the government or the power structures. This is another work by Vicky Roy. Vicky Roy is a runaway kid. Actually, when he was a small boy, he ran away from his house in home in Calcutta, and he came to Delhi. He lived as a rag picker. Then somebody, Salam Balak Trust picked him up and taught him how to click photographs. Gave training in photography. Now he is one of the like a very celebrated young photography artist in Delhi. This is Vicky Roy. So this is like he is remembering his own life. So in the mainstream discourse of landscape or urban planning, these kind of people or these kind of runaway kids are not generally addressed. These boys from Salam Barak Trust, sitting in a, so you can see that the kind of juxtaposition, even if it is quite accidental, there's like this Krish, the character Krish is coming, and they are like looking at their future, or maybe like, again, another reality. This is the kind of reality we try to push away from our idea of landscape or urbanscape. You know that these are sex workers. So in our general imagination, we leave these people to the consideration of NGOs or sociologists, or those people who think about, collecting their data and, studying about their lives and so on. We just don't care about them. But art is something like that tries to articulate this kind of liminal spaces, and artists are concerned, up to an extent artists are concerned with this kind of liminal spaces. Again, this huge dump yard in Delhi. I think, like, see, this is when we talk about, the Chandigarh is a place where plastic waste is not seen. There must be some waste created somewhere at some point, but where this waste is going, where it is dumped, if you trace the trajectory of it, you may find somewhere the waste is dumped, and around that or within that you could see people living, those people who are not seen generally in our landscape. So landscape became a very political thing. So here, from the very contemporary days, I just go back to like 18th and 19th century, this company school, paintings, where the traveling British artists, they actually want to create the idea of India, and those artists who were working with the Mughal courts as miniature painters, working as the members of guild, they came out of the courts because of lack of patronage, and they started working with this traveling Western artists, and this company school became a kind of mutated, like kind of mutant style. So, and company school people, company school artists, what they did was like they extensively documented the landscape of India. And what I'm trying to say through that is, by documenting landscape of India, they actually documented the knowledge system of India. The Britishers or the colonizers, they categorized us, they studied our land, they studied our flora and fauna, they studied our racial qualities, our sexual orientation, everything they studied, and they controlled us through that knowledge pattern or knowledge system. So landscape also becomes a strong tool of control, a tool of control, or a tool of, like a governance. So here, even if they were not intending, but by documenting the Indian activities or Indian life or Indian general life, they were not trying to, control these people. But in general, when they were documenting, they got the real control. That is just like that, why all of us got some names, If we don't have a name, then it is very, that person becomes kind of very enigmatic person. We can't measure him, we can't fathom his feelings, emotions. Who is he? What is he? We don't understand him. The moment we give him a name and identify that he is coming from South India, he is coming from Kerala, or he is coming from here and there, then we can actually measure him. We can control him. So this is one way of like identifying the landscape, painting that, and documenting that. You control that landscape. It's another company school painting. So here I am using Raja Ravi Verma's this particular image. The title is given as "Here Comes Papa." So woman, you can see that a woman is standing and child, and you can notice one thing. There is one dog. So the pet dog, a family which has a pet dog. It is a totally different concept. It's a new concept. So here Raja Ravi Verma is totally bringing a different family structure. Kerala had this matrilinear family system. That means like mother was the important, the family head, and the uncle controlled the power of the family. But when the mother is saying that here comes Papa, the Papa is not in the picture frame, we come to know that that person must be coming. So father was a person who was excluded from the discourse of power. And now he is coming into the pictorial frame. So through this, maybe Rajavarma didn't intend it to be so, but still, when he painted this thing, we can interpret, or we can deduce that this is the arrival of father. That means the arrival of patriarchy. So here, female body becomes, or female presence becomes another landscape. So landscape doesn't mean that there should be, hills and valleys, sunrise, sunset, water, then trees, etc. The body could be a landscape. So here, the transition from matriarchy to patriarchy is embodied in the body of this woman who is holding the child and having a pet dog. So she is inviting, or she is saying that the father is coming within the pictorial frame, or that means within the general discourse, the socio-cultural discourse, even political discourse of Kerala. So here, the landscape, as far as Rajavarma is concerned, the landscape is imagined as a kind of national unity. First time maybe somebody in pictorial terms, some artist trying to bring, this is called a galaxy of musicians. So we see people from, it's almost like a dolls museum. You can see that the dolls wearing different kinds of clothes, from different regions. But here, the musicians are shown in different clothes, and they represent different regions in India. So by bringing these women together, actually Rajavarma was painting a larger landscape, a larger geography within this painting. So there is a kind of inscription. There is no letter in that, but the images, each image, each woman becomes an inscribed entity, an inscribed landscape. That's my argument. So here another, we always say that Rajavarma was the artist who gave the body, a kind of a physical embodiment to the gods and goddesses of, Indian mythology or Hindu mythology. But here, again, the Lakshmi, okay, we understand that this is a physical form, even if there are four hands. Generally, human beings don't have 4 hands. But here he is actually giving an idea of wealth, and which has a human form. And that later on becomes, it becomes a point of reference for even Abanindranath Tagore and later on Emma Hussain and all. When they articulate Bharatmata, somehow this body of this Lakshmi, and later Saraswati also he has done, Rajavarma had done. So this becomes a totally different. So for me, the landscape behind, what he has painted, like as in Renaissance painters, like what you are seeing in perspective behind the main image, the central image, central icon, iconic image, that is immaterial for me. For me, the body of this Devi, that is the landscape that embodies various mythological structures, sociological structures, political structures, in general the cultural structures of that time, or what he was trying to articulate through this particular image. When we come to Abanindranath Tagore, even if these are not similar, I can't say that Abanindranath Tagore. See, perhaps Abanindranath Tagore was one person who hated Rajavarma. He just didn't like, because he was more kind of that, because of the nationalist sentiments at that time. Rajavarma was painting, doing the oil painting, and that was a kind of imitation of what you say the Western activities, or it's a kind of Occidental aesthetics or Occidental politics. So he didn't. The revivalists or the Bengal school people didn't want to, the artists didn't want to kind of praise Rajavarma. They hated him. That is why in Bengal school you don't see any oil painters. Only in 1930s, Ram Kinkar Bej, that he collapses that idea of keeping oil painting out of the educational structure or creative structure or creative system. Most of the artists were painting in tempera, gouache, watercolors and stuff like that. So here, when Abanindranath Tagore paints Bharatmata, he also kind of indirectly, kind of subconsciously refers this image and creates a totally different landscape, a bodyscape, or a body, or the body of this woman, this saintly looking Bharatmata, and that becomes a landscape in general, a zone, a landscape for all of us to articulate our nationalist sentiments, So this is a kind of a pious body. This is Gaganendranath Tagore. So the theatrical representation becomes a new field. You know, of course, there is a different interpretation. Gaganendra Nath was like aware of Cubism, and he, you know, emulated a lot of Cubist paintings, stuff like that, or its stylistic features. But what I'm trying to say is that this theatricality becomes another point of reference or another zone to enact certain nationalist sentiments. So this theater becomes another landscape for expressing their nationalist sentiments. Rabindranath Tagore, here again the gendered body. Of course, I mean, Rabindranath Tagore was not painting only female figures. He was painting male figures, self-portraits, and the various, you know, imaginary characters also. But here, the body, you know, from Saraswati to Bharatamata to this woman, you know, there is some kind of connectivity or some kind of connection, some kind of you know, kind of interface. You could see how this artists articulate their ideas about you know, like you have to replace the word landscape with the body, you know. Here, Nandalal Bose. So here, landscape and the woman's body, you know, that becomes one and the same. You know, this rural landscape of Shantiniketan, this women walking towards some you know, some destination. Even this, you know, the musicians. This is from the Haripura Congress, the series of paintings, series of drawings that Nandalal Bose had done for the Haripura Congress session. So these independent bodies become a part of the whole narrative of nationalism, the way we have seen the galaxy of musicians by Raja Ravi Verma. So these all become, they actually lose their bodily characters, and instead their contours you know, get dissolved, and in that place, through that pose that developed in the contour, the nationalist sentiments come inside. So their bodies become a kind of a field for, you know, doing the discourse or nationalist discourse. Environmental thinking coming up in Binod Bihari Mukherjee. So here in Ramkinkar Bej, this is the famous Santal family, and the next one is this milk cow. So here the interpretation is, here we see so slowly India's economy changing into a new direction, like it is going towards a new direction. So this Santal family, it's a kind of a very strong structure, the pyramidical structure, where father, mother, and the children and dog. They are actually proceeding. You can say either they are going towards some workplace or they are coming back after work. And the same way, milk call. They are listening a call from the mill, the siren, and they are rushing. And while rushing towards the mill, they are even drying their clothes, you know. So the whole idea is, like, from the people are moving, the Santal families, or the people who were subsisting on agricultural products and agricultural labor, they are changing. They were changing at that point of time. They were changing from the agricultural economy to the industrial economy. They are running towards a mill, and they were getting tuned by this call of the mill. So they had to rush to the mill. That means, like, they have to leave their agricultural lands, agricultural labor, and they had to become this, you know, I don't know where exactly Ramkinkar Bej was thinking in those terms, but the whole change in the landscape, or the whole change in the complexion of the space and the locality is embodied in these two works. But when we come to, I mean, I'm just making a quantum jump, like from 1930s to, like, you know, the new century, like these 2000s we could call. So this is Hungry God by Subodh Gupta. So when we come here, the whole idea of labor, the whole idea of location, the whole idea of geography, landscape, or that is spiritual scape or metascape or local topographical detailing, everything is gone. Now this has become absolutely global. The landscape becomes totally ironed out, phenomenon. It could be anywhere. Because of that white boy, we think that it is somewhere else. It could be in Delhi, it could be in Chandigarh, it could be anywhere. So even if, of course, I mean, Subodh Gupta must be thinking about the Bihari labor class, you know, like the people using the steel vessels, etc., lower middle class or middle class. I mean, because he was here, he must have talked in his typical Bihari accent about, you know, all those stuff. But from Ramkinkar Beige, when we come to Subodh Gupta, the whole idea of body changes, the whole idea of articulating the locality changes. It becomes so global. I mean, I'm not going into the good, bad, ugly effects of it. What I'm trying to say is that the ideology of land completely changes. It becomes something like, you know, without any ideological leaning. It becomes a totally different ideology, which leans more towards the capitalist ideology, you know, which relies more on the kind of spectacular, you know, spectacularity of art. You know, it becomes a spectacle in itself. So that is Subodh Gupta. So I just want to make this connection from milk cow, which is actually going towards industrial revolution or industrial changes that had been happening at that point of time. And after 70, 80 years, what we see is like the reaping of the fruits of the total changes, technology, industry, and so on. Another work which recently got inaugurated in this Kiran Nadar Museum in Delhi. So actually, no, I mean, you can call it, you know, anything you can call it. It could be this nuclear explosion. It could be a tree. It could be an abstract form. It could be anything. It could be anything. It could be some abstract structure, you know. But that in that ambiguity, you lose all the meaning. So it is in this ambiguity this kind of works function. It's not like yesterday you were watching Subodh's work. Subodh, I mean another Subodh. So in Subodh Kerkar's work, you can see that like he actually invests his political ideology into the images and the objects that he creates. So here, the meaning, the political ideology, everything is taken away. It is a totally, absolutely neutral landscape. It is absolutely a flat landscape where you pour your emotions, like you can just wonder at the kind of magnanimity of its size. This is Chitta Prasad. So again, from there I am coming to 40s and 50s, 1940. I am just going back again, like around 60 years back again. You know, from here. During the Bengal famine, the artificially man-made famine, these artists were like absolutely politically inclined. They just traveled all over the Bengal. Now the Bangladesh also, like they traveled all over. Then they documented the ordinary people. So people become a landscape, and the idea of art completely changes. You know, so these people actually articulate a political landscape through the suffering people. And if you ask that this is the right kind of art, this is social realism, I mean, I'm not going to get into that discourse. Instead, what I'm trying to say is that here, this juxtaposition, this contrasting, or this kind of interface is very interesting. Like, so here, on the one hand, here you see total the erosion of meaning, or total erasure of meaning, and here you see the body, that body itself becoming a kind of loaded image, you know, an image loaded with the meanings. You know, that becomes maybe the kind of you know, emblem for, or this becomes emblematic of the general landscape of India at that time, a country that was going through the throes of you know, independent struggle. So here, the dying people, Chitta Prasad represents. Again, Chitta Prasad. So body becomes a kind of field of ideological contestations. In turn, it becomes the landscape or nature, whatever you call. Again, Chitta Prasad. Zainul Abidin, a contemporary of Chitta Prasad. So actually, even if art deliberately tries to take out its meaning, or it excuses its meaning out, dries it, still it leaves a certain kind of forensic evidences of, you know, of that time of its creation, even if the artist wants it or not. Again, Zainul Abidin, Somnath Ghor, another sculpture by Somnath Hor. Yeah, then we have Francis Newton Sousa, totally different. So, right from Ramkinkar Beige, if you look, we have in between, we have Amrita Shergill. You know, she was bringing a totally, maybe like, she was more like a Raja Ravi Verma. She was traveling all over, she was finding people, she was finding models, making them to sit for her, and she was painting them. And here, absolutely a rebellious artist, which is actually defying the rules of this nation, maybe or the ethical rules or the kind of social moral codes. You know, Sousa was a person who is like totally going against the kind of you know, idealism that the Bengal school artists or the Shantiniketan artists used to you know, bring forth through their works or in their works. Here he is totally negating that thing. So you may ask, like, why female body becomes a kind of, you know, like a kind of embodied ideology. But here I say that, like, here the female body actually becomes a zone of contestation of different ideologies. Here the issue of male gaze come, her body is kind of becoming open. She becomes nature. Here a fully clad man and a fully nude woman. So there is a kind of dialogue between, a kind of fight between what you call nature and what you call culture. So who is holding the key of nature, who is holding the key of culture, and or who attributes this idea of nature or natural onto the female body, and who calls himself as a cultured person. So the question of female gaze, male gaze come into play, and later on it is critiqued by, you know, other artists. I mean, just to bring this contrast between body as a landscape and the landscape as a landscape. It is absolutely violent sort of, you know, expressionist sort of landscape by Francis Newton Sousa. So you can't say that it is representational, or it is not representing the Indian landscape of, or, you know, like this is sometime done in 1964. He's not trying to represent the landscape as landscape, but it is the idea of landscape, you know, absolutely in chaos. Maybe the failure of Nehruvian ideologies, or the democracy is not functioning. That kind of you know, frustration must be the reason behind this kind of painting. And again, I invite you to think about the earlier works of, I mean, early painting of Raja Ravi Verma, then our Abhinendranath Tagore, Rabindranath Tagore, and then when come to Hussain, the female body that turns into the ideologically, that becomes the land. From the physical embodiment, it becomes topographical embodiment also. It becomes a kind of geographical, the contours of the female body turns into the contours of our country, the map of our country. So there is a lot of take from the early artists, from the artists from the history, and M.F. Hussain is trying to re-articulate the very same idea. Again, I mean, whether I would like to call you know, Hussain as a pro-feminist or anti-feminist, a male chauvinist, or, you know, like, I'm not going to get into that discourse. Instead, I'm saying that here actually he is turning the female body around, and he is taking complete freedom to turn the female body around and make it a kind of geography, in order to again represent the kind of nationalist sentiments. Another work, M.F. Hussain. So it is quite interesting. Like, M.F. Hussain was critiqued by, or even attacked by, the right-wing fundamentalist you know, people. But he is a person like who has been doing this thing. He has, I mean, here I think even you could say that this is juxtaposition between not only two Ganeshas, there is a bit of a Mother Teresa also here. You know, if you look at that the blue border of that white dhoti, you know, so something very Hussain was something like a kind of he was kind of going through all sorts of things, you know, without thinking much about his political stance on, you know, issues. Yeah, so here when we come to 1980s, Ghulam Muhammad Sheikh, you know, here again there is a thought about like whether Western expressionism was important. I mean, stylistically speaking or aesthetically speaking. But to talk about nature and landscape they were the artists of 1980s who were mainly operating from Baroda. They were also thinking about like how to handle their own immediate surroundings, immediate landscape, how they are going to represent, how to create a new mythology, or how to create a new dialogue with their own immediate surroundings, how the human being that had been excluded from the previous works, like here, here, even if the human beings are represented here, it is not the human being as a kind of realistic person. You know, this is a kind of imagined person. Here, when the narrative school becomes operative or functional in Baroda, the artists like Ghulam Muhammad Sheikh, Bhupan Kakar or KGS, you know, people like that, or artists like that, they were trying to bring the man and the woman, the raw human beings, back to their own spaces, their own lands, their own geographies, their own nations. You know, you could say that nation doesn't have the issue of nationalism. They were not talking about nationalism. They were writing a nation. They were actually inscribing their land, their nation with their own subjectivities and identities. So here, and for that, they went back to the miniature school painting, the miniature paintings here, and the stylistic details, the stylistic aspects of miniature painting, like how to show different perspectives, how to on single frame, pictorial frame, how different activities could be simultaneously represented. So they try to bring all these aspects, these narrative aspects in their paintings. Again, Ghulam Muhammad Sheikh, you can say that it's a kind of a reclaimed landscape. You know, what landscape was totally ousted, a kind of rejected or ejected from their physical bodies. Now they are trying to bring it back into their discourse. This is one interesting painting which I would like to go in detail. This is Bhupan Kakkar's very famous painting, You Can't Please All. This is that the very famous story, the folk tale. The father and the son were going to the market with a donkey, with their donkey, and the people started laughing at them. Why you two are walking? Why can't one of you climb on it? So father climbs on it, and people say that, oh, son is young, why can't you give him a chance? So he gets down, son climbs on it. They again go further. People mock at them. Both of them sit on it. Finally, people say that, you poor donkey. So what they do is they start lifting the donkey. They walk, and finally people say that it is so funny. And finally the donkey dies. Because of these activities, the donkey dies, and they bury. So this is the same landscape. A huge story, a huge moral story, or a very interesting moral story is brought by Bhupan Kerkar here. That's only in the external level. That is just an outer layer of this painting. The real interest of this painting is, or intention of this painting is, Bhupan Kerkar was a gay man. His sexual orientation was different. But he was not ready to tell the world that, or technically we call it coming out of closet, and reveal that if you are a gay, if you have a different sexual orientation, you come out and tell your friends or relatives or parents that, Mom, I'm a gay, or I'm a lesbian. That's the way you declare to the world that you have a different sexual orientation. But those were not the days that Indian society could have tolerated such declarations, such coming out of closets. So Bhupan was like playing it safe. Bhupan was like he was giving certain allegorical representation of his own sexuality. So here you see the man is standing inside a room, which is actually, as in miniature paintings, you could see that it's a section of it. He is standing, and he tells the world that, and the title suggests that you can't please all. Means you could be a gay, and you could have your own sexual fantasies and sexual relationships. But just being a manly body, you can't go by the social dictats, social instructions. If you are a man, you should be heterosexual. Nobody can dictate your, you can't go out and please all the people, and marry and live a kind of normal life. So he's trying to say that. He's showing his back to us, means to the viewer, and he is revealing the whole story. sorry, and indirectly tell us as viewers that, I'm not going to please you. And also, another interesting aspect of this painting is that there is a kind of dialogue between the public and the private. There's a public space out there. We are constantly in touch with the public space, but in our private space, we are different people. We have different orientations, we have different ideas, we have different aspirations, dreams and desires. But in public, we need not express all those things. Here, the artist is safe in his private domain, and this also could be his own studio where other people are not allowed to enter. That is why he could be nude there, So, this is a very political painting, and it's a very interesting painting where landscape plays a very important role as in the kind of miniature narrative way. There's a man, again Subodh Kerkar, man with a plastic bouquet. You yourself can see that how the landscape is distributed. Landscape as you can say that a social field. Different things are happening there. We are simultaneously seeing the excluded activities also. Like you are looking at barber shops, home interiors, some evening addas, things like that. So exclusions are also, and this centrally placed iconic man, there's a central icon of a man. And this is another pivotal painting by Subodh Kerkar where he is referring to this myth of Yayati, the father acquiring manliness from son and rendering the son, like a kind of immediate old man. Like that. So here, all the sexual details. This definitely is a kind of coming out of closet type of painting where he represents himself, his self-portrait as the white-haired man and his whatever lover or whoever. There's another interesting painting, and it's the physical body, especially when it is done by a gay artist. He is not representing a beautiful body. His idea is not presenting his own body, but it is a political body, and a political body is the political landscape itself. He is not alone. There are so many people with different sexual orientations. So this is this is a painting with a funny title, like a man from Wasat with 5 penises suffering from running nose. It's a complicated title, but when you read it together, it is quite funny. So it's almost a kind of hurling sort of, so what at the face of the society. Yeah. K.G. Subramaniam, again going by the kind of narrative structure that we often see in miniature paintings, multiple layers and multiple levels of activities happening. But generally, again, I would say that the excluded people are brought into the pictorial discourse. The middle class, their activities. I mean, as Professor Goswami was telling yesterday, he was like deconstructing the number of moments that you spend in front of a work of art. Like he was telling that 2 seconds per, or 2 or 3 seconds per work of art. Like if you cannot like understand what exactly is going on in this kind of paintings by just looking at for 2 or 3 seconds. So if you look at minutely, there are a lot of activities happening, lot of engagements, social engagements. So the whole area, the whole pictorial frame becomes a huge landscape of activities, a huge area, huge zone of different, political as well as social activities happening, giving and taking arguments, so many things happening around. Another one, it's much stylized. This is Krishan Khanna. Is a Delhi-based artist, also kind of semi-mythical, semi-narrative, realistic. There's a lot of stories. It evokes a sort of Last Supper. All these things. What I'm trying to say is, this art is now trying to bring the excluded. What was like, it was not, there is nothing national about it. There is no glorification of our Indianness or India as India shining, the incredible India, nothing like that. The people who are excluded from the general, as we have seen in the photographs, like rack pickers, like coolies, etc., they are brought back. Like again, the bandwalas in practice, like these people, poor people, like today we see a lot of private security people in Delhi, especially in Delhi, places like Delhi. The security people, they look Their uniform shows that they are security people, but they are emaciated people. Like they go back home also in the uniform, come to work also in this uniform, and from nowhere they look like powerful people. But they are given this uniform so that they feel. That is why, like when you walk into gallery in Lalit Kala Akademi in Delhi, like they will stop you. Or if you are standing in front of a painting, because that is the only one area they could exercise their power. I remember Aravind Adiga in his novel White Tiger. He talks about a driver who is working in Delhi. Why Indian servants spit a lot? Because this driver, this hero of this novel, he spits all the time. He keeps spitting. In Delhi, spitting is on national, kind of sport or national entertainment or something like that. They keep spitting. Why? Because they hate their masters like anything. They are so powerless. By spitting, they show their anger, frustration, and revenge. By each spitting, they take revenge upon their masters. So this kind of, the excluded parties, the excluded men, the people who were pushed to the fringes, they are again brought back to the central landscape of visual discourse by artists like Krishan Khanna. This is work by Sudhir Padvarthan. You can see that these are obviously not the heroes and heroines of like the celebrated people. They are the kind of very ordinary people. And also you can see that there are some sociological references, like these paintings come the pre-global times, because our parents, we remember, like their whole aspiration was to make a house which has a concrete roof, because it could emulate the kind of a concrete roofed house made by those people who have gone to Canada or Gulf or places like that. And the second idea was to get their own Bajaj scooter, so that they can travel by the Bajaj scooter. So this our economy was like we were having very limited economy. That is why surf became a kind of kind of a brand for any kind of washing powder. Colgate become a brand for any kind of toothpaste. Even in villages, the people say that Colgate. Colgate means it could be four hands, it could be any other promise or whatever. But Colgate is on name. So we had limited options. That is why, like when in our childhood, whenever we used to go to school by walking, we take teams. We become teams. So you will be ambassador, you will be Fiat, because we didn't have much options. You can see only Fiats and ambassadors. So how many ambassadors you see, how many Fiats you see, accordingly you by the time you reach school, one of the teams will be a winner. So like that. So this is this is the kind of reality. This is, I think, Vijay Super. There was the scooter, I remember, and a totally different kind of life in Bombay. Another painting by Sudhir Padvarthan. Again, you can see that the construction workers and all becoming or taking center stage in the landscape of narration. Nalini Malani. Because women were always considered. Amrita Shergill tried her best to portray herself as a rebellious woman, but there was a kind of there is a long period, almost like kind of 2 or 3 decades that you didn't find strong women artists. Not because that there were not strong women artists, like Linda Nochlin once asked this famous question: why there have been no great women artists? Not because when we study Impressionism and Post-Impressionism, we come to know these artists like Berthe Morisot, Mary Cassatt and all as the keeps of artists like Gauguin or Matisse, people like that. They were considered to be keeps. Actually, they were not keeps. They were artists of their own rights. But because of the male ideology, male art history, we started calling them keeps, or they were like. But in Nalini Malani and all, like by 80s, the idea of female body is recaptured by the female artist, the woman artist. So it is no longer like a Sousa painting or Hussein painting a nude body. Because they are like trying to capture they were kind of taking authority over the body of women. Here, they themselves take, the women themselves take. So their body, they reclaim their land. They reclaim their own earth, their own body. Another work by Nalini Malani. This is by Navjot Altaf. You remember like Navajot Altaf went and did a sculpture in Bastar in Chhattisgarh. As a kind of a voluptuous looking nude woman standing, almost like as if she were standing. So now if you go, you see that that woman is wearing a sari. That sari is over painted by some other people, you know, because it was offending the morality of the people around. Now I ask you to think back on Raja Ravi Verma's Lakshmi. Here Pushpamala is trying to, kind of reenact. So she is actually reclaiming art history, the male art history, means the Raja Ravi Verma's art history, into her scheme of things. She becomes, that is Pushpamala herself. She enacts the role of, like as in Cindy Sherman and all, like Cindy Sherman is an American artist. She enacts the various roles from movies and stuff like that. And she photographs herself, and that becomes her work of art. Like that, here Pushpamala enacts the role of Lakshmi, and she is standing inside a lotus. Pushpamala and her friend, I think Claire Arney, they are standing. This is a kind of this is a kind of critique, or this kind of interpolation or kind of twist that the women artists give to the kind of general discourse of, or the kind of accepted discourse, or kind of mainstream kind of I can't say phallocentric, but the mainstream discourse of art. This is another artist, Delhi-based Sonia Khurana. Perhaps she is the first artist who showed her nudity in a video. This is she herself. This work is called The Bird. So she is actually taking her work. She has an obese body. She makes some certain movements like a bird, like a fluttering and moving, jumping and all. This is fast edited. This is one of the works that she had done very early. During kind of even in India, there were not too many video art at that time. That time she did like sometime late 90s. So this is Sonia Khurana. So in my observation, like her body is a landscape where she has own right. She can define the contours. She can define who could be the owner, the authority of her land. Here again, Jitish Kalat. He started painting. I mean, he's, if you ask me that does he represent the struggling poor people in Bombay, I don't say that he represent them, but he is an artist like who actually merges the landscape of Bombay with the people live there, the underprivileged people living there in Bombay. So this is a kind of street kids, or runaway kids, or like people. So many young people come to Bombay. They become one of the millions of street dwellers, and their whole idea of, or whole dream of being there is like represented as slums and the various activities, the jumbled activities that happen in their daily lives. This is a kind of a work again by Jitish Kalat, which is more a kind of a spectacular work. Anything could be a kind of a fossil. You can fossilize anything. So here a kind of very high-end car is becoming, like kind of turning into a skeleton. Another work by Jitish Kalat. So here this is another interesting work which I want to show you. This is as big as that. You can see the scale. The kind of a girl, and this is a very huge work. This is a sculpture which is called Eruda. Eruda means erudite, the kind of knowledgeable. And these are the young boys who sell all Paulo Coelho, John Griffith, Grisham, Ayn Rand. All these famous writers, they actually carry all the books on their shoulders. They come and knock at your car and say that, do you want to buy this thing? In a very red light area, you can see these people. So the question is that, the question that Jitish Kalat wants to raise is this, that does this boy read these books? Does he have any authority, or do they have any authority or right over the knowledge that they are selling? So there is a huge rupture between these two entities, the knowledge and the people who sell knowledge. So this is some kind of huge schism, huge hatches, a huge rupture that has happened in our social body, or in our general landscape. I would say, I should add that general landscape of living as well as thinking. This is a work by Baiju Parthan. You can see that urban landscape becoming very important, very menacing kind of, symbols coming. Yeah, this is a work by Surendran Nair. Why I am showing this work? Because this has multiple references of nationalism, in how nationalism is reread or re-looked at in the contemporary days. You can see a kind of reference that Govardhan, Govardhanotharan, like the Lord Krishna raising the Govardhana. So here Mahatma Gandhi is seen standing, raising all this, these char dhams and the various religious, symbols on his head. He has raised all these things as a responsibility, and he is trying to save. But unfortunately, there are not too many people around. A crow is there under the shade of his umbrella, that which represent. This could be a kind of a strong critique of the kind of political geography that we have developed in our country recently. This is another interesting work by Surendran Nair. Again, this had become a huge controversy in 1999 in National Gallery of Modern Art in New Delhi. This is here. The title of the work is an actor rehearsing the interior monologue of Icarus. And you see he is standing on the Ashokan pillar, and he is about to take off. The Icarus story, like Icarus and Daedalus, they were trying to fly, and this Icarus flew near to the sun, and the wax melted, and he fell down and died. So the question was nothing, the painting itself was not a problem. The problem was why Icarus is standing on Ashokan pillar. So, as Subodh Kerkar always says, sentiments hurtitis. That's a disease that we are suffering from. Anything can hurt our sentiments.
Religious anti-hurtitis.
Yeah, religious anti-hurtitis. So that disease we are suffering from. So suddenly somebody felt, some people felt that this is a kind of desecration of our national symbol. So there became a huge problem. So that another work by Surendran Nair. So you can connect the kind of the real landscape and the kind of an imagined landscape and the religious symbolism, etc., etc. Shibu notation. This work is called Each One Teach One. Shibu is very much interested in the black history, black philosophy, things like that. And there is a huge work in which you can see the real landscape, but it is absolutely imagined. He doesn't have anything to do with this. So this is a landscape which is imagined, which is created, but this has, all these images have a real reference elsewhere. So many realities are brought into our visual discourse, or the idea of our landscape, or our idea of our space. And here he says this black saying, like each one teach one. Everyone is a teacher, or we teach mutually. And here another artist, Manjunath Kamath. So this is again the imagination of urban spaces. It becomes like the way, it's a kind of counter thesis of T.S. Eliot. T.S. Eliot said it is a kind of heap of broken images. But here, broken images are there, like it is totally dispersed, here and there. The whole field is left vacant, but certain images are kept here and there, so that a new meaning is created. You can read out, like this is a kind of, any leader, this is without painting the whole thing, he gives suggestions. A dog pissing on a throne. I mean, you can read out. Right? So this is a kind of new landscape we have been thrown into, and we are destined to live in such kind of landscape. Here another work, I think like a power cut in Vasantakunj or something like that. So very, very local images, very localized, ideas. You can imagine a lot of surreal feel. He actually, he's a friend of mine. He always says that is art critic, like standing a donkey with a lot of books, They can't understand art. That is what he says. This is a work by, as you know, like Jagannath Panda. Jagannath Panda is a mid-career artist. Like, he's thinking mostly about the new urban man. He is a kind of dislocated man. He is a displaced man, a displaced human being. I mean, you may be very rich, but yet you are not in the center. It is not just about any human being, any migrant laborer being pushed to the fringes. It is not about that. Even if you have money, even if you have ability to be there, you have ability to buy your property, but still you are pushed to a kind of to the fringes. For example, like a person living in in Gudgaon, he never feels that he is in center. It is center in its own way, but it is away from the center because the power is there in New Delhi. So there is always kind of the issue of, so even the migrant who finds himself in a landscape also is categorized into, or he also is put into a kind of different category. He put into a different hierarchy. Another image by Jagannath Panda. So you can see that like this high buildings with the glass facades. This is a kind of a new defining landscape where a human, a kind of urban person finds himself or herself. A work by Sudhanshu Sutar. Again, he also talks about the migration. And by referring to Mahatma Gandhi and his 3 monkeys, and here the uniformed people, and we also like when we also live in certain kind of uniform, when we accept certain social norms, when the rebellious feel in our minds die away, we also become a kind of uniformed people. We accept certain commands, so we becomes the monkeys. We want to like kind of you want to rebel, but you always need a group of people with you, so that you can merge into you can become like one of the monkeys of Mahatma Gandhi. It's a kind of a total Mahatma Gandhi's watch, the globe, everything coming. Another work by Sudhanshu Sutar. You can see that the urban decay and the kind of thinking of the old glory, and a kind of we always say that if some Western powers were like here, we would have been like we would have been living in or leading a much better life. So there's a kind of, and also a threshold, an in-betweenness, a kind of standing in a sort of liminal space where you can't define your own identity, totally a wasted land. So now landscape is becoming a reason to ideate environmental issues, debate environmental issues, and also represent environmental issues. Here we have Adul Bhalla, a Delhi-based artist. He actually, this Bisleri bottles. He filled it with plaster of Paris and take the mold or cut the bottle away, so that you get this mold, this kind of thick sculptural bottled water, with the plaster of Paris. So it is a critique on the kind of how our landscape is being exploited by the water companies, the companies that sell water. See, these are the different kinds of that hand pumps. This is actually like, this is, you can't see these hand pumps in a kind of upmarket, posh sector, in an upmarket, neighborhood. These things have like gone into certain gullies where poor people live. So, but that also constitutes our landscape. That also is a part of, an integral part of our landscape. So he photographs it from different places and create a kind of an ensemble of hand pumps. So that in itself becomes a different landscape. There is a work by Vibha Galhotra. Here you see a kind of digital transference of a slum, an urban slum, which is multiplied in certain ways, digitally multiplied. But if you carefully look, you can see that there are some soldiers, obviously looking like a kind of American Marines, U.S. Marines, or they are mannequins basically, and they are also wearing a sort of camouflage which resembles the background, that is the image of slum, and they merge into it. So here there is a critique. The artist perhaps is trying to say that even the combatants of terror, that means the people who oppose terror or terrorism, also mix the way terrorists mix in a society. They actually camouflage themselves like one among us, but they are still the representatives of state or representatives of authority. So here it's a different take on that. So actually no, there is I mean, I'm not an advocate of terrorism, and I don't want to be attacked by terrorists either. But still, when we say that a terrorist or Maoist, you know, we name them because they are different from us. We are complacent people, they are demanding something. I'm not talking about those people unnecessarily kill other people, but those people who are, you know, disadvantaged by, incapacitated by certain political and economic ideologies, when they demand something, then they ask for their rights, when they they raise voice for their rights, we call them terrorists, because this is an easy way to, you know, curb them and to send the police force or military there and, you know, stop them. So this is a critique of that by Vibha, and this is you know, another phenomenon that we see in any urban centers. Like if you look at any city, you can see a crane with this concrete slabs for balance, because that is the way an urban space is being created constantly. That becomes a kind of permanent fixture. At some point, like especially in Dubai and all, when the new buildings were being built, the landscape was crisscrossed, or the skyscape was crisscrossed by these cranes. And this is another monster being that which has become actually kind of part of our lives. These JCB machines, they go around like as if they were a kind of animated creatures. They go around, they maul the earth, they take away. And here Vibha Galhotra is giving a kind of a different iconicity, to imparting a different iconicity to this particular inflated you know, JCB machine, which was kept in one of the malls, the kind of atrium of a mall in Saket in Delhi. So you can feel that how the landscape is changing, and also the irony is the artist has to bring this stuff into a mall which is created out of destroying a different kind of landscape, you know, which was already existing there. Another work by Sumedh Rajendran. This, you know, that you remember the first thing, that metro pillars and metro you know, bridges. Here Sumedh Rajendran has created you know, this pillars or metro bridge or the flyovers. Actually it was even before the metros came into being, the flyovers. Here the flyovers become a kind of iconic presence, and if you look at that, these are all created by that metal or sheet metal boxes, where mostly the migrant people carry their whole belongings into this kind of thing. If you go to Old Delhi railway station, or people from village come, their whole properties and belongings are stuffed in this kind of boxes, you know. So actually they become the migrant laborers here. They actually contribute their labor to build these you know, the huge flyovers and the bridges and stuff like that, that we use, and they are always pushed out once the work is done. Another work by Sumedh Rajendran. These are again by this discarded tin sheet. He converts that into boxes, and in turn they become a part of you know, the religious structure. You know, a beheaded you know, or kind of animal. Their neta is being pulled down. So this is some kind of urban discourse. Urban landscape is constituted by this varying or contesting ideologies, religious, political, social, you know, with certain taboos or moralities, etc., etc. You know, so actually we are living in a battle zone. You know, there are some artists like Prasad Raghavan. This is a part of his animation. This again, this earth moving machine. This is another artist by Shivananda Basavandappa from Karnataka. He also he continuously paints, you know, these are watercolors, continuously paints this JCB machines, different kind of earth movers. Another artist I would like to bring, that is Mathai KT from Kochi. He works from Kochi, and he talks about his own village. These earth movers are actually mauling the landscape slowly, and leaving these houses, these churches, and all, marooned in small thicket pockets of, earth. So now, in the place of religious and religious structures and secular structures, these Bisleri bottles are coming up, or this plastic bottled water is coming up, because they are actually exploiting earth for marketing this water. This is a work by, like, an unfolding of a dream. Yesterday, Subodh Kerkar in detail said, like, how landscape become a kind of political field. You can completely turn a landscape into a political act. Landscape itself become a political act. You use a beach and you bring the Tibetan, their activism and their chanting, and the whole area become a kind of, or the whole, almost a kilometer of space, a sea beach, turns into a political war zone. But this, a peaceful war zone, I would say. Yeah. That is a kind of a double speak I would use, because the war is peace, slavery is freedom, that kind of, Orwellian double speak. And I was there witnessing this program. Subodh is leading. And Subodh shows his oratorial skills whenever he gets an opportunity, and he always demands, like, things should happen. If there was a minister there, and he demanded certain things there also. Like, it's a good thing when artist turns, he becomes a kind of a medium to voice the concerns of a land. This is again that K.T. Mathai, that artist who was using, and recently he did a performance. It was a very interesting performance. In Christianity, there is one concept of becoming slave to God. So you like devote yourself as a slave of God. So he receives one plantain, mango, plant, and from an elder in a church, and he walks in a small procession, and he actually plants this on a hilltop. And I'll show you while explaining it. This is how he is actually, and by this act, by this symbolic act, what he says that he is becoming a slave of earth, a slave of the God, and he is going to, because in his land this thing is happening, what you are seeing in the forefront. So this is how these JCB machines are actually eating away his village. So a group of artists came together. After planting the tree, they painted like cave paintings. You can't do anything more than, you can't do great frescoes or great murals there, because this earth is being excavated and exploited by the building companies. And slowly this open land becomes like a new property. It will be available for developing new townships and all, and the villages, and you see that the greenery, that is the actual, that was like this all over, and that is slowly vanishing. So this is, so what I'm trying to say is, art also could be an activism, an act of defiance, an act of revelation, an act of provocation, and also an act of submission in this case. See, again he walks. This, so you can imagine that how that landscape would be. This is like taking away the earth. Finally, he is planting. So we have hope. So that's why we are still living in landscape art.
As we are in danger of becoming more ignorant and most well-informed society, so when you talk about documentation as a form of knowledge, you talk about knowledge as power, documentation as power. So where you fit contemporary artists in that form, and what is where you fit the traditional art forms of India as compared preferably to the what you call the contemporary knowledge. So what's the clash between both?
Yeah. See, contemporary art functions both in reality and illusion, falsehood also. Contemporary artists can actually, they can just go one day to say Guwahati from here, And without knowing anything, they can click a few photographs and they say that they understand the whole, you know, the issues of political issues, the problems there. They can just come and exhibit elsewhere and they can claim. So documentation could be one way of exercising power. That has been a colonizing activity all the time, because it was the colonizers at some point, they actually, you know, documented us and gave the knowledge to us and telling that, you know, you don't know this. But contemporary art also, like in a big way, it is documentary, it is documentary in nature. But whenever you have a serious involvement with that, if you go on documenting certain, like for example, like Sabina Gedihok. Sabina Gedihok is a mass communication and a filmmaker, mass communication theorist and a filmmaker herself. She was actually following this Homai Vyaravella, the first Indian woman photographer. She followed her almost for 15 years and documented each and every day. So it's like, I mean, whenever it is possible. Like, so it was a constant engagement. So here, we cannot say that Sabina Gedihok was like trying to capture the authority over Homai Vyaravela's knowledge system, or we cannot say that she was trying to create a knowledge system about Homai Vyaravela. It was not a colonizing act, but she created a wealth of information, a wealth of or a kind of a treasure house of images and information, so that the posterity could understand. Because after she was very active during our independence, and Nehru, when Nehru became Prime Minister, she was very close to Nehru. She was a Parsi woman. She stopped photography altogether because when Indira Gandhi came to power, security became an issue, national issue. Because Nehru was like a free, kind of a free man, you know. He used to go and dance with people, you know. He was a kind of a different sort of person. When Indira Gandhi took over power, as she had a lot of political maneuverings, a lot of strategies, her life was a kind of, she thought that her life was under threat, and a lot of security issue. So this woman photographer who used to run behind the Nehru she was a Gandhi wearing a khadi sari. She realized that, you know, she has to bend in front of security people. They were like stopping her. So she left her photography career altogether. And after several years, somebody found out that she was still living in Baroda, and this Sabina Gedihok started pursuing. And so we cannot say that that is a way of colonizing. She was very intense, she was very passionate about. So there are some artists like that who follow ultimately. They keep on doing it, documenting it. So that is good. There are some artists like they just present a set of documentation. The problems of Brazilian miners. Somebody sitting in Bombay and they're searching some website or visiting once in Brazil and coming back and revealing a whole lot of documentation on Brazilian miners, where we should have some problem. You know, we can't say that that person has complete right over that kind of discourse there. So I think contemporary art has certain values, and at times it doesn't have any value in terms of documentation.
What I felt was that when you talked about Chandigarh and the cultural shocks, being a person born to Chandigarh, I just wanted to add a few things. You see, this reaction to the city, which Corbusier built, and as one of the greatest charges against Corbusier was that he did not make anything for the builders of the city. So they had to be pushed out and new slums would come up. So there are areas all around Chandigarh, Mauli Jagran, Naya Gaon, Ram Darbar. But we have also had our writers and artists, you know, coming out against this city of squares, the landscape given to us. Poets, I recall many, and I recall 4 lines by a Punjabi poet, Amitoj, which said, "I have no name, I have a room number, and I have no name, I have a roll number, I have no room, I have a room number." And especially Diwan here, his photography has attempted this, be it the mithai workers, you know, the mithai mazdoors, or the rickshawalas. And similarly, I can at once recall Rajkumar, his paintings, he tried to, the people who are pushed out of the canvas, paint them. I think what the city needs is Johny following it, not just coming once but many times.
At this juncture, I have a request to make, because most of the art students, I have met many of them. What they want to do after their graduation, they want to go either to Shantiniketan or to Baroda, places like that. I think the administration should make certain efforts to get more young students from outside to this city. Maybe, I don't know, how is it possible, and is there are different rules about that. I don't know, but I think they should become, the people coming from outside, they should become the cultural ambassadors, so that, even Hyderabad, a lot of students go to Hyderabad, and there is a kind of a pilgrimage to Hyderabad, as to in the case of Baroda. So I have seen a lot of people coming out of Chandigarh and coming to Delhi or Bombay or wherever. But I would like to see more, a kind of inflow of people from outside, to not only to study, to research, to be here, Yeah, I know that it's a very expensive city. I believe very neat cities must be very expensive also.
A lot of people, as he said, we all know that they go to other places. There should be an inflow of that can happen only if people like Johny or Subodh or other artists, they keep coming, keep giving us this knowledge, and also keep reminding us of that we Chandigarhians can really create a space for artists to live, to work, to get established. And like Nirupama Dutt, like Nilman Singh Chaudhary, or Professor Goswami, the late Kumar Vikal, many of these, Lake Chand, they have actually made the city proud, made the city what the city is like today. Chandigarh is known by them basically, apart from Kapil Dev and Yuvraj Singh from the sports world or JohnyML Singh. But in the intellectual world, people have contributed. Some of them actually made it their base. So it would be really, really important if you people adopt this city, keep coming, as Nirupama rightly pointed out. Thank you so much once again for sharing your thoughts and sharing the huge, vast landscape of the fertile landscape of Indian creativity. Huge number of artists who have plucked God knows from where and shown their work to us, and weaving that tapestry of mental or physical landscape. Thank you so much once again.